Hey everybody, Tyler Ward here, VP of Security for IGI, here to talk to you about external exposure of RDP servers to the internet. And yes, it is 2019, and yes, we are still talking about it. So, we find it important enough to talk about because our incident response team is still responding to these active breaches involving externally exposed RDP servers. So, I hope that you get a lot out of this video. As always, at the end of it, if you have any questions, paste the comment in, ping IGI, we'd be happy to answer any questions in chat. So, RDP servers being exposed to the outside world. So first let's talk about why organizations are doing this. Right? The number one reason that we're running into is purely based on functionality and ease of use. They want to enable their users to access their network in a streamlined fashion so that it doesn't interfere with their job. It actually enables them to do their jobs. So by nature, there is nothing wrong with that concept. However, attackers are actively exploiting RDP systems that are exposed to the public web. We see it every day in the news. Massive ransomware attacks. IGI's incident response team is responding those to seemingly on a daily basis. So we want to talk about how to protect those, how attackers are getting into these systems. So organizations are exposing these systems to the internet in really an unknowingly fashion, right? So when they put these systems out here, I'd say 90% of the time the customers that we talk to that have been through a breach involving these, they didn't even know that these were exposed necessarily. And if they did, they thought that they were protected by some sort of firewall. But what's happening is that organizations are creating network address translations to go directly to these systems, which essentially moves this RDP server right in front of the firewall and directly expose the internet. So what happens when that is the case? That this system is now susceptible to all the vulnerabilities that are on that system, receives very little, if any, protection from that firewall whatsoever, and is also vulnerable to any kind of account or password policies that you may or may not have within your environment. So, case in point, if you have a 0-character password policy in your Active Directory domain or in a local system, you haven't been patching the system, and there's no multi-factor authentication enabled, there's a very likely chance that you're going to be breached from this system. Even if you change the port from 3389 to something obscure, attackers don't care. They're going to find that port through scanning. So, let's talk about how you can protect yourself, right? So the number one thing that we want to talk about is isolation of these systems, right? We're talking about a demilitarized zone, a DMZ, for any of your forward-facing systems to ensure that when an attacker gets access to this system, that they don't have full reign over your entire environment. Because when attackers do get access to these systems, they use them for a number of different things. They use them for malware distribution sites, they use them for pilfering your data, finding sensitive PII, not only on this system, but all the way throughout your environment. And they also use them for, on occasion, phishing splash pages, to where they'll use your system to stand up a web server to phish other users and have them come to your site to enter their credentials. So they're using your network for a bunch of different things in their attacks. And then finally, they may actually hit you with ransomware at the end just to get a quick buck on their way out. So back to the protection. So we talked a little bit about the isolation of these environments and creating a secure DMZ. Now we're talking about a VPN connection in front of this system. So the authentication path for users is no longer just relaying to this system directly. They must go through your firewall VPN and authenticate with not only credentials, but multi-factor authentication, some sort of two-factor authentication or multi-factor, whether it be biometrics or a key card or a key fob or even a one-time PIN on your smartphone. They have very easy options for this now. So VPN connection, not directly to the system anymore. It's in its isolated environment so that not only the attackers can't reach other systems, but your users, if they don't require access to your databases, to your printers, to your other environments, to your wireless environments, then they can only stay in this little bubble right here. And then going a step forward, critical patching. You need to be patching these systems regularly, especially if for any systems that are exposed to the outside, you need to be patching double time. You need to make sure that these systems, any systems facing the outside, are being scanned with a vulnerability scanner on a regular basis, and those patches are being applied. And then obviously your account policies. So your lockout policies, you want to make sure that brute force attacks aren't possible on these systems because accounts will be locked out. Make sure that you have strong credentials, right, over 14 or 15 characters on these systems. Make it very difficult for attackers to get into these systems, and then when and if they are there, have the monitoring capabilities to pick that up very quickly and shut them down. So that's a little bit about external exposure from RDP. If you have any more questions, please contact IGI. Our consultants would be happy to help you out with any of your security initiatives. Thank you.